My army will never halt its march, land dweller.
I don't really care about appearances. You always look fine to me. If you like to pamper yourself, just do it on your own time, all right?
Give me a break. I'm just straightening the crown. I know it looks ridiculous. I didn't ask to be king, they just picked me. I don't know why the Tideborn Wardens need a king. I only know that they insist that I wear this crown when I'm out in public. We need to put a face on the order and people like you, almost as much as Scordo. Unfortunately, Scordo isn't a warden. If he was, I could have gotten out of this. I don't have any real responsibilities or power. The order doesn't have any territory, nor do we want any. We have one job to do, and that's maintain the balance between land and sea. Oh, it looks like we've got company. Hello there. Welcome to ESO Vault. I've got another build for you today, and this is a Warden with Arcanist and Nightblade subclasses. If you got some time, you should come along with Sharp and I, and we'll take a look at today's video, the Tideborn King. Give me my money, damn it.
There's something worth bragging about.
We've still got bad problems here, but we're going to have to hand it over to the locals. There's something going on in Solstice that's going to take precedent over everything else.
What?
It looks like the worm cult is making a comeback. This is the part of the video where I normally look at the character sheet contained within the game, but if I'm being honest, I never liked that part of my videos. I always thought it was visually boring, and the information being conveyed didn't warrant taking up the whole screen. So I'm going to start doing it differently, and I've taken portions of the screen from the Superstar add-on and put them down there at the bottom. Before I dig in, though, I want to say that I may make superficial changes to how I handle things, but the channel itself remains unchanged. And just to reiterate that, the goal has never been to showcase builds out on the bleeding edge of what's possible in the game, but rather to show and demonstrate builds that the average player has a better shot at putting together and using effectively. In past videos, I talked about what I call the 3 R's. That's readily obtainable gear, reproducible rotations, and reachable DPS. And by and large, I still follow those. Many of my builds may push those limits by featuring mythic items and arena weapons, but it's rare that any specific gear set is required. For the most part, gear is a drop-in. You use what you have until you get something better. Skills and how you use them are way more important than the gear, and they're my primary focus. Okay, now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's get back to the character. You can see that my character is an orc, and they're an excellent race for stamina damage dealers. They have bonuses to stamina, health, weapon and spell damage, and they heal themselves passively as they do damage. Now this is the point at which I used to put up a racial tier list. I'm not doing that anymore. One reason is because there's almost never a correlation between which of my characters is the most effective and what their race is. So I would say play the race you want to play. Now if your name appears on a leaderboard in the game, then some attention to the race you're playing is warranted. For me, and I think most players, it just doesn't matter. Play the race you find interesting. The buff food I'm using is lava foot soup and salt rice, which gives me stamina and stamina recovery, but no health. If I want more health, I can swap this for a variety of things, but one of my favorites is Orzorga's Tripe Trifle Pocket. Orzorga is an orc in Rothgar, and you can get this recipe from her. It gives me health and the same amount of stamina recovery I got with the lava foot soup. If any of you guys run the build, you can experiment with food and run what works best for you. The Mundus stone I'm using is the Thief, and that increases my critical strike chance. I never use another Mundus unless I'm on a build that's for solo arena content or PvP. I have all 64 attribute points in stamina, and I wind up with 30,000 points of max stamina and 19,000 points of max health. 19,000 points of health is just below the Mendoza line, and I can up that a little by a health glyph or two if I ever get around to it. I have 1,500 points of stamina recovery and 800 points of magicka recovery. This build is definitely a hybrid in that it uses a lot of magicka for a stam-based build. You'll see in the skills section how I help my magicka sustain. Weapon damage is 5,000 and crit chance is 58%, and both of those go up in combat. Penetration is almost 7,000, which is plenty for a static character sheet, That's another number that's going to go up in combat. Alright, let's move on. You know how rare it used to be to see these creatures? Some in the Order doubted that they even existed. Now they're everywhere. This beach is practically under full-scale invasion. Well, before we get to work, I want to check on my skills.
I guess we could do that.
You already know that Warden is my base class, and my two subclasses are Arcanist and Nightblade. I'll narrow it down from there by telling you that my 3 skill lines I'm using are Animal Companions, Herald of the Tome, and Assassination. I know a lot of players are using Arcanist so they can run the Fate Carver beam, but an Arcanist subclass can still be powerful without running the beam. I'm going to use the Crux system to activate a powerful Arcanist passive skill. A lot of the power of subclassing is in the class passives, and you'll see that here. I can make a significantly more powerful Warden by leaning into Arcanist and Nightblade passives and borrowing a few select skills. This is a 2-bar build, and I need to do some light attack weaving here, but it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, I'm going to start on the back bar, which is where I start my rotation. My back bar is a 2-handed sword, and the first skill I'm going to use is the Arcanist skill Inspired Scholarship. This skill will make one of the Arcanists green Crux if I don't already have one, and when I use a class skill it does extra damage. I want to point out that in subclassing, any class skill counts as a class skill unless a specific class is named in the tooltip. I'm going to use another Arcanist skill on my main bar to consume the Crux I made and activate the Fated Fortune passive, which increases my critical damage by 12%. I also get Major Brutality and Sorcery from Inspired Scholarship. That's going to allow me to run with tri-stat recovery potions instead of weapon power potions. The second skill I'm going to use is the Warden skill Blue Betty. I have a few Magicka skills here, so Blue Betty is what I'm running for extra Magicka sustain. Every 5 seconds, Blue Betty will remove one negative effect from me or increase my damage by 5%. In PvE, I'm not typically going to have a negative effect, so I can usually count on this unnamed buff to damage. Unnamed buffs are important because they stack with all other buffs. Frequently, named buffs end up being redundant, so keep your eye out for these unnamed ones. Another benefit of the Blue Betty is that because it's restoring Magicka, it's going to activate the Arcanist passive Harness Quintessence, which increases my weapon and spell damage by 284 for 10 seconds. Now I'm going to use another Warden skill, and that's Deep Fissure. These magical shock will burrow underground and surface a few seconds later to do damage in an area in front of me. I have to make sure I'm facing my enemy so the shock don't erupt in the wrong spot. The shock surface twice, doing massive damage, and they cause major and minor breach to enemies in the area. That's a 9,000 point reduction to the armor of whatever I'm fighting. This is a great Warden skill, and the strong damage combined with the armor debuff is hard to beat. Finally, I'm going to use the 2-handed skill Stampede. Stampede is a gap closer that does damage over time and increases my weapon and spell damage, provided the sword is in the infused trait and I have a weapon damage glyph on it. This is a lot of extra weapon damage, so don't leave this out of your 2-bar melee builds. I've got 2 skills left on this bar, and the first is Resolving Vigor from the Fighters Guild. This healing skill is practically a must-have on stamina builds unless I'm running with a first-rate healer. Finally is my ultimate, which is Guardian Savagery, or simply the Bear. The Bear isn't as bursty as other ultimates, but its continuous damage output is pretty hard to beat. In addition to its continuous damage, the Bear has a powerful special attack which I can activate whenever it's ready. Alright, let's look at my main bar. This bar is dual-wield daggers, and the first skill I use is the Arcanist skill Tentacular Dread. Tentacular Dread does frost damage and marks enemies with Abyssal Ink for 20 seconds. Enemies covered in Abyssal Ink take 5% more damage. Tentacular Dread consumes a single Crux I generated with Inspired Scholarship and activates the Fated Fortune passive. Fated Fortune increases my critical damage by 12% and the effect lasts 7 seconds. In that 7 seconds, I'll use my spammable attack 7 times. My spammable is the Nightblade skill Surprise Attack. Surprise Attack does physical damage, causes the Sundered status effect, and is a critical strike every 3rd attack if I'm attacking from the flank. While I'm using Surprise Attack, if my next skill is ready, I'll use that instead. Right now that skill is Merciless Resolve. When Update 47 drops, it'll be Relentless Focus. After Update 47, Relentless Focus will be the high damage attack, and Merciless Resolve will have a big heal. After 7 combined attacks, I'll use Tentacular Dread again. It consumes another Crux and reactivates the Fated Fortune passive for another 7 seconds. Now I'll make 7 more attacks with my Spammable and Merciless Resolve. Then I swap bars and repeat the rotation. Except I left a few details out. First, if my enemy is below 20% health, I'm going to use the Nightblade Execute Killer's Blade instead of Surprise Attack. I'm going to keep using Merciless Resolve when it's ready. I keep that up until the very end. At extremely low health, I keep using Killer's Blade and I don't use Merciless Resolve. But until I get to the 10 to 15% range, Merciless Resolve will do more damage than any other attack. So basically, I borrowed the Nightblade's 3 attack system. And why not? It's a darn good one. I have my Spammable and my high damage attack that needs to be charged by light attacks and my Execute. The Nightblade's big 3 attacks can be a good drop-in on just about any build, potent in their own right and doubly so by allowing me to access the Nightblade passives. Also, they're very low-key graphically and can fit my mojo on a variety of builds. Whatever idea I have for my character, the Nightblade's kit isn't likely to spoil it. I left out 2 skills. The Bear I already talked about, and that has to be slotted on both bars. The other is the Warden skill, Bird of Prey, which I can use for a speed boost when I need it, but otherwise it's passively slotted for extra damage. I get Minor Berserk for having it slotted, and that increases my damage by 5%. Also, it gives me a second Animal Companion skill on this bar, so the Advanced Species passive is increasing my critical damage by 10%. I didn't talk about the Nightblade passives here, but they're equally important. From a gameplay standpoint, I try to attack my enemy from behind so that I can get the most out of those passives. And that ensures that I'm getting crits from every third hit of surprise attack automatically. Okay, that's it for my main bar, so let me put it all together with a quick fight. $75,000 points of damage per second, and this was done on the test server, so this should be reasonably accurate. Average crit chance was 72%, and that's about where I wind up on any build using the Nightblade's kit. Nightblades have a lot of critical chance in the assassination skill line, so that's going to work well on any build. On a side note, I want to mention that in playing this, I sometimes run Shooting Star as my ultimate instead of the Bear. I use that in a fight with one of the new world bosses in Solstice, Tidespite, and that's because Tidespite killed the Bear again and again. Normally the Bear is pretty resilient, not against that boss. So I ran Shooting Star on my back bar and Soul Harvest on my main bar. Soul Harvest has become my go-to on my main bar because whenever I kill an enemy, I generate a nice chunk of ultimate. If I choose to use it, I increase my damage by 20% for 8 seconds. I'm keeping my fingers crossed though because some forms of ultimate generation have been nerfed in the upcoming Update 47. Not this one so far. Oh, one last thing about this fight here. I used the Scribed Healing skill, Healing Burst, to give myself minor courage. I don't recommend running with that in content. That's a super expensive Magicka skill and the build can't sustain that. Alright, let's go back to Solstice.
I don't like seeing things go to waste.
I know, but what are we going to do with this thing? I've got it. Ride down the beach and get some Argonians from that village we just helped. This thing will feed the whole village. Hell, it'll feed the whole island. In the meantime, I need to check my gear. I'm changing the way I do the gear section by just using the Superstar add-on to put all the gear up on the screen, and you guys can see all the sets, weights, and traits all at once. I know you won't believe this, but I'm wearing a new set. Are you okay? You looked like you were going to pass out. No? Okay, let's keep going. I'm wearing 5 pieces of the Tideborn Wild Stalker set, which is a crafted set from Solstice. This set increases my direct damage to monsters by 12%. The Tideborn set works really well provided I have high crit and I have a lot of direct damage. What do I mean by a lot? North of 60%. and this build is well above that. The second 5-piece set I'm wearing is good old Order's Wrath. Order's Wrath is getting pretty long in the tooth, but short of grinding for Trials gear, it's still one of the best options. Order's Wrath gives me a lot of crit chance plus a bonus to critical damage. Order's Wrath is active on both bars, and if you look at the graphic you'll see I have 2 Tideborn daggers, so that's only active on the front bar. And that works great because all of the direct damage happens when I'm on my front bar. On my back bar I've got a Maelstrom's Perfected Greatsword. If you don't have that, you can craft a Tideboard one if you want, or throw just about anything else you have in the slot. If it's got a 2-piece crit bonus, even better. But try to get your hands on a Maelstrom Greatsword. It really amplifies direct damage, so it does a lot for the build. Make sure whatever you run in this slot is in the Infused trait and has a weapon damage glyph. That's a key feature of 2-bar builds and the main reason players run a 2-bar build. That setup works with the Stampede skill to greatly increase my weapon damage. I'm wearing the Zon Monster Helm for an additional bonus to critical chance, but I don't need that specific one. Any monster helm with a 1-piece crit bonus will do. I just happen to have this one on me. Last but not least, I'm running the Velothi Mage's Amulet. If you don't have this mythic item, just run a 2-piece monster set of your choice. But if you do have this, run it, especially if you don't have good light attack weaving, and I don't. You can run something like the Harpooner's Wading Kilt, but the kilt may get you in trouble with your crit damage modifier. And by trouble, I mean it's easy to go over the cap with the subclassing build, and that will make that bonus useless. Okay, you guys have the chart with all the enchantments and traits and all that good stuff, so I'm just going to wrap this up and look at champion points. Focusing on the blue tree, I have Wrathful Strikes, Master at Arms, Fighting Finesse, and Deadly Aim. And this is typical for a direct damage focused build. Master at Arms increases area direct damage, and Deadly Aim increases single target direct damage. Wrathful Strikes boosts all damage, and Fighting Finesse increases the damage critical hits do. If you find yourself going over the crit damage cap in organized groups, you can drop Fighting Finesse for something like Exploiter. Even in small groups, odds are somebody is running off balance. Well, that's it for the build. If you guys want to take off now, I don't blame you, but you're invited to the feast. Let me tell you that you've never had crab until you've had it cooked by an Argonian. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. There's a fashion show and a fight at the end, followed by a clip from the Superstar add-on, which shows this build at a glance. Again, thanks for watching, have a great day, and enjoy your adventures in Tamriel.
That's it? You should have run. Don't just stand there. than us.
What is happening?
This place belongs to the forces of Moloch Ball now. Show them the power of Cold Harbor. Cold Harbor's wrath on these maggots!
Are you hungry? I'm starved. You think the village has any of that crab left?